Let's not start with comfort. Let's not start with fluff. Let's begin with something raw. Let's begin with a question. Do you even know why you're alive? Not why you're breathing. Not why you're working. Not why you're pretending everything is fine. But why you're here. Why you exist.
Have you ever asked yourself that? Late at night, when everything goes quiet, when the distractions stop, have you ever really sat with it? No scrolling, no noise, no escape, and asked, what is this all for? Or are you afraid to look? Afraid of the silence? Afraid of the answer? Or worse, afraid that there is no answer? Let me be blunt. Most people are not living. They're surviving. They're playing roles, wearing masks, checking boxes. Wake up, work, smile, consume, sleep, repeat, call it life. But it's not. It's existence on autopilot. Why? Because purpose is painful. It requires discomfort, sacrifice, honesty, conflict. So most avoid it, and instead they settle for comfort, predictability, numbness. But inside, they feel it, that low ache, that silent scream, the soul crying out, there's more. Nietzsche once said, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But what if you don't have a why? What if you've never even looked for one? Then every inconvenience becomes unbearable. Every hardship feels like torture. Every Monday is a death sentence. You're not weak. You're just directionless. A ship with no compass will always feel lost, even in calm waters. Let me ask you again. Do you know why you're alive? Don't give me your job title. Don't give me your family name. Don't give me your bank balance. I'm asking about your core, your essence, the thing that makes your heart beat faster. When no one's watching, what sets your soul on fire? What would you die for? More importantly, what would you live for on purpose? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people never find their purpose because they never give themselves permission to. They follow the script. Be good. Be quiet. Fit in. Don't rock the boat. Don't ask too many questions. And definitely don't dare to want more. But deep down you want more, don't you? You feel it in your gut. When you're alone. When you're honest. You know this can't be it. You weren't born just to pay bills and be liked. You weren't put here to shrink. You feel something trying to rise in you. Something wild. Untamed. True. But you push it down. Because it's dangerous. Because it means change. Because it means conflict. Let me tell you a secret. The thing you're afraid to look at. Your dissatisfaction, your discomfort. It's a clue. It's the beginning of purpose. You don't find purpose in comfort. You find it in hunger. In frustration. In that sense that something is missing. Because something is. Let me paint a picture. A man wakes up at 6 a.m., puts on a tie he hates, drives to a job he loathes, nods in meetings he doesn't believe in, smiles at people who drain him, then drives home in silence, and pours a drink to silence the noise in his head. He's doing well, but he's dying inside. You know him. You are him. He's everywhere. Because our world rewards obedience, not truth. And truth, it's not polite, it's not safe, it's not convenient, but it's necessary. Because your life, your real life, begins the moment you stop lying to yourself. So be honest. Do you even like who you've become? Do you feel proud when you look in the mirror? Or do you avoid eye contact with yourself? That's not judgment. That's an invitation. To pause. To question. To wake the hell up. Nietzsche said, no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. And that's what purpose is. Owning yourself. Your choices. Your fire. Not what the world told you to be. Not what your parents needed you to be. Not what your fears forced you to be. But what you choose deliberately. With pain. With fire. With truth. So where do you start? How do you find this elusive purpose? You start by listening. To that quiet voice you've been silencing. The one that says, this isn't me. There's more. I need out. Don't run from that voice. Run toward it. Because that voice is you. And yes, purpose hurts. Because it demands that you shed your masks, your lies, your false selves. But on the other side of that pain is power, is peace, is clarity. Not easy, but real. And real is worth everything. So I ask you again, do you know why you're alive? If not, will you start asking? Will you dare to search? To burn? To rebuild? The world doesn't need another copy, another cog, another clone. It needs you, fully awake, on fire, on purpose. Are you ready to meet that version of yourself? the one who knows why he wakes up, why she breathes, the one who doesn't just exist, but lives. Then begin, ask, break, listen, and don't stop until you remember why you're here, why you're alive. And then, live like it. You wake up, you go to work, you do what's expected of you, you smile when appropriate, you perform, you please, you persist. And yet, at the end of the day, there's a question that lingers. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's subtle, but it's there. Why am I doing all this? Most people don't find their why not because they're incapable, but because they're overwhelmed by the noise of everything else. We live in a world where survival has become synonymous with conformity. From an early age, we're taught to follow rules, color within the lines, say the right things, and avoid rocking the boat. And while these lessons may teach us how to function in society, they often crush the fragile spark of self-inquiry. Finding your why requires silence. Not external silence, but internal clarity, the kind that can only come when you stop performing for others long enough to listen to yourself. But here's the catch. Most people are terrified of silence. Not because it's empty, but because it's honest. In the silence, there's no one to impress, no one to validate you. It's just you and the truth. And the truth can be unsettling. Why haven't you found your purpose yet? Because no one showed you how to search for it. Your schooling prepared you to pass tests, not to ask meaningful questions. Your workplace trains you to execute tasks, not to align with values. Your social circles reward agreement and safety, not authenticity. And in the middle of all this structure, the one thing no one ever prioritized was helping you understand yourself. You're not lost. You're buried. Beneath layers of expectations, under societal narratives of what success looks like, inside routines that were handed to you, not chosen. And the longer you live within those layers, the more you forget that you even have a choice. Here's something important. Purpose is not found by asking, what should I do with my life? It's found by asking, who am I willing to be no matter the cost? That's where most people hesitate, because the cost is real. Purpose often demands a radical shift, in career, in relationships, in values. It asks you to confront things you've avoided for years. The job that drains you, the life you're pretending to enjoy, the person you've become to keep others happy. These are not light topics. They're tectonic plates in the foundation of your identity. Moving them means everything above them will also move. And that's scary. But fear isn't the enemy. Fear is the compass. If something scares you because it threatens the false version of yourself you've created, it's probably pointing you in the right direction. The reason you haven't found your why is not because it's hidden from you. It's because you've spent years building a life around avoiding it. You've stayed busy, productive, distracted. You've prioritized being agreeable over being authentic. You've numbed your dissatisfaction with consumption, comfort, and convenience. The truth is, you already know what lights you up. You already know which moments feel alive and which ones feel dead. You already know what gives you energy and what sucks it out of you. But knowing is dangerous because once you acknowledge the truth, you have to make a choice. Do you keep living the same way, now fully aware of the compromise? Or do you change? Nietzsche wrote, "The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently." Think differently. That's the only way to rediscover your why. It won't be delivered to you. It won't appear as a sudden revelation. It will emerge as a result of difficult introspection, honest confrontation, and courageous decisions. Ask yourself, what moments in your life made you feel fully alive? When did you feel proud, not because others praised you, but because you knew you were being true to yourself? What are you willing to suffer for? Because that's where your purpose lives. Not in your passions, but in your pains. Not in your hobbies, but in your sacrifices. What are you willing to struggle for? What are you unwilling to ignore, even when it's inconvenient? These are the real questions, but they're uncomfortable, so most people avoid them. They stay distracted, entertained, and numb. They convince themselves that comfort is happiness, that routine is fulfillment, that busyness is progress, but deep down they know something's missing. And that ache, that quiet sense of not quite, is the soul whispering that there's a different path, one that might be harder, but infinitely more real. So, why haven't you found your why yet? Because it requires the one thing the modern world resists the most: self-ownership. Finding your purpose is not a passive process. It's a war, against distraction, against cultural conditioning, against your own fear. But it's a war worth fighting, because at the end of it is a life that belongs entirely to you, not borrowed, not inherited, not performed, owned. And that kind of life doesn't need validation. It breathes authenticity. It radiates alignment. You'll know when you find it, because you'll no longer need to ask what your purpose is. You'll be living it. There's a lie we're told early in life, a subtle one, embedded in every advertisement, every cultural script, every safe decision applauded by society. The lie is this, that the goal of life is to be comfortable. We're told to seek stability, a steady job, a quiet home, predictable routines, smooth relationships, retirement plans, familiar conversations, a life that runs without friction. And if we manage to get these things, we are led to believe that we have succeeded, that we have made it. But then something strange happens. Even with everything in place, something still feels off. The restlessness remains. The questions persist. The fire is absent. Why? Because we weren't born for comfort. We were born to burn. Not to be consumed, but to be ignited. Comfort is not the same as peace. And it's certainly not the same as purpose. Comfort is the absence of challenge. Peace is the presence of alignment. And purpose? Purpose is the fire you're willing to walk through, because you know what's on the other side is real. A life of comfort rarely requires your full self. It asks for compliance, not creativity. It rewards routine, not reinvention. It praises consistency, not courage. But purpose? Purpose demands everything. It asks you to show up when it's hard, to speak when it's risky, to create when it's uncertain, and to move when it's uncomfortable. Nietzsche wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." That chaos, that inner dissonance, that unrelenting desire to become more than you are, is not something to be silenced. It's something to be followed. That chaos is a map, and yet we run from it. We run from the burn. We want clarity without confusion, growth without pain, fulfillment without friction. But all transformation carries a cost. All truth burns away what isn't real. And all real purpose will stretch you beyond who you currently are. This is why true purpose is not found in still waters. It's found in the waves, in the resistance, in the moments you choose to walk through discomfort rather than away from it. Think of every story that ever inspired you. Was it a tale of someone who chose safety, who avoided risk, who remained within the boundaries of the known? Or was it the story of someone who confronted chaos, embraced uncertainty, and walked directly into the fire? The human spirit is not nourished by ease. It's elevated by challenge. Why do we admire resilience, courage, innovation, and authenticity? Because they all require sacrifice. They all require burning. Burning is not suffering for its own sake. It's suffering for the sake of something real. There is a type of suffering that is noble. The suffering of the artist who creates truth through paint, word, sound. The suffering of the entrepreneur who builds something new against all odds. The suffering of the leader who chooses integrity over popularity. The suffering of the parent who sacrifices for love. The suffering of the soul that refuses to live a lie. This kind of pain is not weakness. It's a sign of alignment. Because once you've tasted purpose, comfort is no longer enough. Once you've seen what it means to live with fire, a lukewarm life becomes unbearable. Nietzsche also said, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." The meaning is everything. Without it, pain is unbearable. With it, pain becomes sacred. Comfort asks you to avoid pain. Purpose asks you to choose your pain. The question is not whether you will suffer. Life guarantees struggle. The real question is, will your suffering serve something meaningful? Purpose doesn't exempt you from hardship. It transforms it. It gives your suffering direction. It turns wounds into wisdom. But to claim that transformation, you must be willing to leave the comfort of the known. You must be willing to dismantle the identity that was built to be accepted and step into the unknown of who you really are. This is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice to show up, to speak truth, to do the thing that scares you, to risk rejection in favor of authenticity, to keep burning even when the world tells you to cool down. The tragedy of modern life is not that people suffer. It's that they suffer for nothing. They suffer through jobs they hate, relationships they've outgrown, lives they don't recognize, all to avoid the discomfort of change. But change is where the real burn lives. The burn of growth, the burn of becoming. You must ask yourself, what are you willing to burn for? What idea, dream, truth, or vision are you willing to suffer for? What is so important to you that it makes the fear, the struggle, the conflict worth it? If you don't have an answer yet, keep looking. Keep listening. Not to the noise outside, but to the unrest inside. That unrest is not a flaw. It's your compass. The world may try to soothe you into complacency. It will offer you distractions, validations, shortcuts. But deep inside, you'll know when you've compromised. You'll know when you've gone numb. And you'll feel it in the form of restlessness, irritability, boredom, and that creeping sense of meaninglessness. Don't ignore that feeling. Don't medicate it. Don't drown it in consumption or busyness. Answer it. Step into the fire. Let it strip away who you're not. Let it reveal what really matters. Let it forge you into someone who lives on purpose, not by accident. True purpose is not a reward. It's a responsibility. It's not given to you. It's created by you. And it will cost you comfort. But what you receive in return is beyond measure. You receive integrity. You receive clarity. You receive the unshakable peace that comes from living a life that is fully yours. So don't chase comfort. Chase the burn. Because that burn, that's where you come alive. You want clarity. You want direction. You want your life to mean something more than just ticking boxes and meeting deadlines. So you ask, how do I find my purpose? And you hope the answer will be soft, simple, reassuring. But the real answer is this. You find your purpose through pain, and you make it real through action. That's not what most people want to hear, because it means purpose isn't an idea that magically arrives in a quiet moment of meditation. It's not something you stumble upon while scrolling, or a title someone else hands to you. Purpose is forged. It's extracted. It's earned. And the raw material for that forging is pain. Your struggles, your doubts, your heartbreaks, your failures, your restlessness, your disappointments. Most people avoid pain at all costs. They distract, deny, deflect. But pain is a signal. It points to where something is off, where something deeper needs to be seen, confronted, healed. Nietzsche once said, "Only great pain is the ultimate liberator of the spirit." Pain strips away illusions. It dismantles the false identities we construct to fit in. It reveals the truth we've been too scared to face. Think about the moments in your life that changed you. Not the easy ones, the hard ones, the heartbreaks that shattered you, the failures that humbled you, the losses that left you breathless. Those moments hurt, but they woke you up. They forced you to ask deeper questions. They cracked your shell. They demanded evolution. But pain alone is not enough. If you sit in it too long without movement, it becomes suffering without meaning. The key is to move through the pain, to act. Action transforms pain into purpose. You don't think your way into purpose. You act your way into it. You try things. You experiment. You fail. You reflect. You adjust. You move again. And with each step, the fog lifts. You begin to learn what resonates, what drains you, what fuels you, what feels like alignment, what doesn't. You don't need the full picture before you begin. You just need a spark and the courage to follow it. That's where people get stuck. They wait for certainty. They want to know it will work before they begin. But clarity comes from movement, not thought. There's a simple truth. If you're not acting, you're avoiding. If you're avoiding, you're delaying your purpose. And the longer you delay, the deeper the ache becomes. It doesn't go away. It just goes underground. And it shows up as frustration, as burnout, as depression, as feeling off. You don't need more thinking. You need more truth. And truth lives where you don't want to go. The conversations you avoid, the dreams you keep buried, the path you fear is too late, the version of you that doesn't fit in, but feels alive. That's your direction. Start there. Act from that place. Not because you're ready, but because you're honest. Nietzsche again. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But you don't find your why in theory. You find it in tension, in the struggle between what is and what could be, between who you are and who you must become. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. You're supposed to be in the fight. Every attempt you make is a vote for the life you want to create. Every small act of alignment strengthens the signal. You want to write? Then write, even if no one reads it. You want to help people? Then help, even if you're not perfect. You want to lead? Then speak, even if your voice shakes. Purpose is not about waiting until you're perfect. It's about committing even when you're scared. Especially when you're scared. The deeper your fear, the greater the sign that it matters. Because purpose lives just past fear, just past rejection, just past uncertainty. And when you act despite those things, you become something new. You become someone who chooses growth over safety. Someone who turns wounds into wisdom. Someone who shows others that it's possible. Purpose doesn't make life easier. It makes life meaningful. But meaning isn't handed to you. You build it, one decision at a time, one action at a time. You want to know your purpose? Look where you've bled. Look where you've broken. Look where you've had to rebuild. There, in the ashes, is something powerful. A truth no one can give you, because it was born of your pain. Don't hide from it. Don't numb it. Use it. Act on it. Make something from it. That's where it all begins. Because the answer isn't found by asking, "What is my purpose?" The answer is found by saying, "This is what I will no longer tolerate. This is what I believe matters more than my fear. This is where I begin, even if I don't know where it leads." Purpose is forged through pain, through action, and through the refusal to settle for anything less than a life that is honest. So ask yourself, what pain are you still carrying? What story are you afraid to tell? What step are you avoiding? That's your starting line. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. Now, walk into it. Speak it. Build with it. That's how you find your purpose. That's how you live it. Through pain, through action, through becoming someone who no longer waits. Most people don't want purpose. They want security. They want to feel safe, protected, reassured. They want to know that the risks are calculated, the consequences minimal, the outcome predictable. But here's the paradox. A life of purpose is, by nature, unsafe. You can't chase truth and guarantee applause. You can't be free and still belong to everyone. You can't move forward while clinging to the safety rails. Purpose demands you let go. Nietzsche said, "No price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." To own yourself fully, you must be willing to live without a backup plan. No emotional insurance. No plan B life. No alternate version of you waiting in the wings, just in case the real you gets rejected. But we're trained to think differently. From childhood, we're taught to build fallback plans. Get the stable degree. Take the practical job. Stay close to what's safe. The problem isn't caution, it's captivity. Safety becomes the invisible leash. And before you realize it, your life becomes a museum of what could have been. Every artist who never painted, every speaker who stayed silent, every leader who dimmed their voice to keep the peace. Purpose doesn't grow in locked rooms. It grows in open fields, exposed, uncertain, wild. If you want to live with purpose, you must be willing to lose what was never real to begin with. The illusion of control, the lie of universal approval, the comfort of the cage. This isn't a call to recklessness. It's a call to honesty. Are you living your truth, or just surviving your story? A life of purpose is not always convenient. You will be misunderstood. You will lose things, comfort, relationships, opportunities. But you will gain something else. Yourself. When you stop living with a net, you learn to trust your feet. You become grounded in something stronger than fear, conviction. Fear says, "What if I fall?" Purpose says, "What if you fly?" Look at the people who move you. The ones who speak and something shifts inside you. The ones who create and you feel seen. The ones who live with a fire you can't fake. They're not safer than you. They're just braver. They've made peace with the cost. They've stopped asking, "Will this work?" and started asking, "Is this worth it?" And that's the turning point. You don't need to know the whole path. You need to know it's yours. That's enough. That's everything. You can live two kinds of lives. The one that's protected, or the one that's true. You cannot have both. Truth doesn't come with guarantees. Purpose doesn't promise popularity. But they offer something insurance never can: freedom. To wake up and not dread the day. To speak and not edit your soul. To move and not explain your existence. To be, fully, unapologetically, unrepeatably. But you can't be that if you're always hedging. You can't become that if you're always negotiating your truth. Let's be clear. A purpose-driven life is not always comfortable. You will be lonely sometimes. You will feel exposed. You will doubt yourself. But you will never be bored. You will never be numb. You will never be asleep at the wheel. The moment you say yes to your purpose, you say no to the false protections that kept you small. You walk away from the noise. You walk into yourself. And yes, it's risky. Yes, it's vulnerable. Yes, it's real. But real is what we're dying for. The world doesn't need more perfectly curated lives. It needs more people willing to be radically themselves. People who are willing to leap. People who are willing to lose. People who are willing to burn the backup plan. Because here's the truth. You cannot discover your true capacity while living on the sidelines. You cannot lead while hiding. You cannot create while conforming. So ask yourself, what would you do if you weren't afraid to fail? Who would you become if you stopped trying to be liked? What would you say if you knew you didn't need approval? That's where purpose begins. Not in the safety, but in the risk. Not in the guarantee, but in the leap. Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are." But you can't become who you are by trying to protect what you're not. A life of purpose is a life without insurance. Not because you enjoy danger, but because you finally believe in yourself enough to live without a script. That's not recklessness. That's liberation. So drop the safety net. Let go of the exit strategy. Burn the script you wrote to please everyone else. You are not here to live cautiously. You are here to live clearly, to speak loudly, to act fully. Yes, you might fall. Yes, you might fail, but you will have lived. And in the end, that's the only thing that matters. So when the fear rises, as it will, don't run. Smile, because that's the signal that you're close. Close to truth, close to fire, close to the life that's finally yours. A life without insurance, but with purpose. And that, friend, is the only kind worth living.